How the rich spend. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. Let's take a look at how the wealthy spend and how it affects the economy. Wealthy people have excess cash, generally, and an abundance of money can positively affect your worldview. You don't really have a shortage of cash. Your economic situation is favorable. That doesn't solve all your problems, but it's a good thing to know that economically you're in good shape. The wealthy can spend lavishly at will. They can decide to if they want to buy an expensive vehicle, go on an expensive vacation, they have the ability to do that, right? Nevertheless, the wealthy can and will reduce spending, like during COVID when the government shut down the economy. A lot of that was because personal interactions that are needed when you're buying stuff become impossible if personal interactions are, they become difficult. Like when the economy and when the government was setting up barriers to personal interactions, the wealthy did reduce spending. Also, this might sound unusual. Wealthy people with a lot of money, nevertheless, the novelty of being able to buy anything at any time, that novelty can wear off. I'm going to explain that a little bit further as we go along here, okay? But that is a novelty experience, being able to buy anything at any time. It can wear off. Okay, so rich people generally, they have no barriers to spending cash. We know this because when the wealth effect is in place, like right now, because we're in a Fed interest rate lowering cycle, this is a prosperity loop, the wealth effect will start affecting people's willingness to spend money. The wealth effect and abundance, when people have a lot of money, they tend to be willing to spend it more, okay? Wealthy people spend on high-end vacations, high-end autos, jewelry, and real estate. This supports luxury brand companies that cater to the wealthy. So the luxury brands kind of depend on rich people who have a lot of money to spend. So it spreads to the rest of the economy, though, because the way it works is the wealthy people at the top with money, who can afford to spend lavishly, buy stuff from companies who hire people who then spend their wages in the rest of the economy. So we need people at the top end of the economic spectrum to keep the economy healthy. 70%, just to drive this point home, 70% of the U.S. economy is based on consumer spending. 70% of our economy in the U.S. is dependent on consumers spending their money. So in slow economic times, the wealthy people still have excess cash. They don't have any barriers to spend it, so they can keep the economy going. Right now, about 1 out of every 5 people in the U.S. are spending enough to keep the economy stable. Okay, 1 out of 5, the wealthiest 20%, 1 out of 5 is 20%, can afford to spend enough to keep the U.S. economy in good shape. That might sound like a very narrow slice, and it is. But again, we are in a positive cycle now as the Fed has started to lower interest rates. As the economy improves, the rest of the U.S. public is going to be able to increase their spending too. So, people in general, you might look at this number 1 out of 5 and think that's kind of narrow, that it seems like only a few people have enough cash to keep going. But we are in a prosperity loop because the Fed started lowering interest rates last month, right? Reasons to be encouraged. The Fed is lowering interest rates. Last month, they lowered interest rates. I'm going to explain why this is a good thing. And yesterday, October, they lowered interest rates again. We're expecting a third interest rate cut in December. This is a prosperity loop. Generally, downturns, slowdowns in the economy are brief. Prosperity loops last a lot longer. We are at the very beginning of an uptrend. Next year, the economy is going to be gangbusters. It's going to be incredible. So the economy changes when interest rates are lowered. Okay? The Fed's lowering interest rates, and the economy changes when that happens. Why? Because it becomes cheaper for companies and people to borrow, and then they spend more. Oracle, for example, just took out huge debt to spend on its on projects. OpenAI, Microsoft, a lot of these big companies have begun taking on debt. It's becoming cheaper. The debt, borrowing is becoming cheaper. The Fed is lowering interest rates. That affects what people can afford to borrow. For example, selling a home, if interest rates are low, it's much easier. If you're in the business of selling cars and interest rates are dropping, it becomes much easier to sell cars off your lot. So in general, the economy changes in a positive way when interest rates are lowered. Home loans, car loans, business loans become cheaper. Those loans end up in spending, and again, we get a ripple effect. So right now we have 1 out of every 5 people. In a few months, this is going to be a lot more of the public will have will be spending more. They'll spend more because they will have the wealth effect. They'll feel like they're more abundant financially. So I couldn't fit everything on the board. So can the rich become satiated once they buy, once they keep buying? The answer is yes. Okay. Stephen Wright, the comedian, said, "You can't have everything. Where would you put it?" So think about this. If you've ever lived in a home or an apartment that was large, you tended to fill up all the vacant space with stuff. And then when you moved out, you found out, okay, I've got a lot of stuff here. Do I really need all this? Did I spend on stuff I really didn't need? Answer is usually yes. Okay, that's true for almost everyone. So wealthy people, how do they spend? Kind of the same way that the rest of us do when we have abundance, when we feel like we have a lot of money. Nevertheless, the novelty of being able to buy anything at any time wears off. It can become a burden. If you have a lot of cars, you have to take care of the cars. If you have a huge home, you have to keep the home maintained. Otherwise, when visitors come over and they see dusty rooms, that's a problem, right? So spending a lot can become a burden. So the economy improves when interest rates begin to drop. And that's kind of where we are now. We're at the very beginning of a prosperity cycle. So I know people are saying, well, we're sort of having an economic slowdown. Right, but the Fed has already lowered interest rates twice. That's really going to stimulate the economy, okay? So 6 months from now, you'll look back on this and you will say, we were at the very beginning of an uptrend. So we had kind of a slow time. And soon we will have this wealth effect that will affect our spending. Much more of the economy will. So what do the wealthy do with excess cash and time? So there are some differences, okay? How the wealthy spend their money and time. They kind of do two main things with their cash. Number one, they invest in income-producing assets, okay? Income-producing assets can include stocks with dividends, bonds, a business or two with cash flow, real estate that cash flows. Those are assets, but they produce money. They produce income. So the wealthy tend to invest in income-producing assets. If you learn nothing else from any of this, that's one thing you should be aware of. If you want to become wealthy, buy assets that have income, that produce an income. It's not going to be perfect sledding all the time with the assets you buy. It never is. It's worth it. Okay, when you have income-producing assets, not only is the asset generally increasing in value, it's also producing cash. So second thing wealthy people tend to do, they donate to worthy causes, personal favorite charities. They spend their excess cash on charity. Because you go through a process of buying everything you want and you get to a point where it's like, this is not moving the needle anymore. This is no longer the novelty it once was. Humanity thrives on novelties. Every year there are new car models. There are new clothing fashions. We are always seeking new things, new movies, new television shows. We're not watching the same TV shows that we were watching 10, 20 years ago. Same with movies. We're not driving 20-year-old cars. Every year we have new models. Humans thrive on novelty. Eventually, the ability to buy anything at any time wears off. So buy income-producing assets, donate to charities, and wealthy people in their personal time exercise, spend time with family, and they take in information by reading, and this can include training. If you're always trying to improve your personal knowledge, that is a great tendency that will really come in handy, especially if it's related to something that earns income. Because the one thing that does not get old, I mean, buying a bunch of stuff, that it gets to a point where, this is ridiculous. I've got enough, right? But buying assets to produce income, that can be very interesting, intellectually satisfying, because you're spending an effort to manage what you've purchased. You're managing what you own. That can keep you occupied. That's a great activity. So the training to be able to do that is out there. It's available. And that's a great habit to have, to always be trying to at least be interested in learning new things. So if you have any questions about this, especially this part, the novelty wearing off, being able to buy anything you want. I know that's hard to believe. I want everyone to get to a point financially, economically, where you can buy whatever you want at any time, and then keep track of how long it takes for that behavior to wear off and no longer be exciting. It gets to a point where, how many cars can you drive? How many? It becomes too much. So you have to. If you have any questions about this, please post in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Keep your chin up. Okay, because the Fed is lowering interest rates. We're in a prosperity loop. Things are improving. We've already had 2 interest rate cuts. We're probably going to have another one in December. Next year, this time next year, the economy is going to be rocking. Watch for that. Okay, so don't be hard on yourself. Don't be hard on the economy. Just look up and plan for a positive future. We're in a prosperity loop. If you have any questions, post in the comments. I really want to thank everyone for watching and have a great day.